Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Gilmore, the owner and founder of Noisy Bird Digital Marketing, and you are watching the podcast Without a Name. This is a podcast where we sit down and chat with other business and marketing professionals, and we hopefully help to solve some marketing problems and questions that your business may be struggling with. I'm joined as always with my co-host and longtime friend, Robert Smith.
Hello, happy to be here, as always.
And we're joined also by our special guest, Diego Ibarra, and we'll hear from him a little bit about what he does and his business and all that. So thanks for coming on, Diego.
Thanks for inviting me. This is my podcast debut, so we'll see.
Well, worst comes to worst, we get 0 listeners, and then it's the worst podcast you've ever been on.
Perfect. And the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only up from there, right? So, Diego, you've been in business basically since college, and we've all been friends for a while. I don't know that much about your business, which makes me excited to chat with you today. I know a little bit about what you do, and I've seen you work hard when we're on vacations together, but that's about the extent of what I know about what you do. So tell us a little bit about what your business is, what your role is, and how you became involved in it.
Yeah. I would say I think I've always been pretty drawn to entrepreneurship and business ownership. I was raised, to work hard, and I always have, and that's kind of what drew me to wanting to run my own business. I got my business degree at BYU in strategic management, and we did a lot of things around surveying the market, understanding the market, who are the big players, what are they doing. We talked a lot about incumbent businesses and innovative new startups and how they upset the apple cart. I spent a lot of time in college studying those dynamics. As I came out of college, I got a job with a tech company and have been a product manager there for almost 8 years now. It'll be 8 years this October. I spent a lot of time in the corporate world, building software and features, mainly with large US real estate brokers. The more I did that, the more I realized I really want to do this on my own. I think I can do this on my own. Luckily, because of my job, I was introduced to a lot of different elements of business that I think many people are not as familiar with: contract negotiation, marketing, things like how do you go and figure out the problems that customers have, and how do you build a solution that not only solves it, but that is purchasable. And so the experiences I've had over the last 8 years really made it easy to kind of switch gears into running my own business. So about 3 years ago, my wife finished her master's. She got her master's in social work, and she told me that she didn't want to go work for a residential company or residential treatment facility. She didn't want to work, for someone else. She wanted to run her own business, specifically using horses as a modality. And neither her nor I had any experience in horses. And so I said, great, let's do it. Let's go buy a horse. And so I jumped on KSL. If you don't know what KSL is, you might not be in Utah, Idaho, or Nevada. KSL is like the Mountain West version of Craigslist. And so I hopped on KSL and I just searched horses, and boom, there's a horse. I messaged the lady, hey, I want to buy your horse. And she asked me, so what's your experience with horses? Which is a good thing. All horse owners, by the way, ask this question. And I said, I have none. I have no experience whatsoever, but it can't be that hard. And she responded with, I'm not going to sell you my horse, but if you would like, I'll give you horseback riding lessons.
Which is probably the proper response to somebody driven by a horse.
I think so. And so I did. I took riding lessons from her. She was a fantastic mentor. She taught me a lot about horses, not just how to ride, just about the psychology, about the relationship building aspects of it. And from there, I was hooked. My wife was doing the same thing with a different teacher. So we took riding lessons for about a year, and then we bought our first horse. My business mind went, these horses are going to be purchases that we want to purchase anyway. Let's build a business around it so that the business can generate revenue to pay the cost of these horses. So that's what we did. We started a business around mental health therapy using horses. And then we made another big jump, and we said, okay, we want to run our own business. We need facilities. We can either lease them, which is pretty costly. So to board a horse can be anywhere from $300 to 600 a month. The overhead becomes insane to go lease facilities from somebody else. So we said, we need to build this ourselves. We moved a couple states over to Oregon where we could afford enough land. And we've been slowly building the facilities. We have 4 horses now, all of which are used primarily in therapy. I guess the short story of kind of how we started. No experience a couple of years ago with horses, deep dived into it, learned as much as we could, still learning everything we can. I've been slowly trying to build our infrastructure to support our business.
That's awesome. I think what rang true to me is just that entrepreneurial spirit. I don't know a thing about horses, but man, that sounds fun. You know what I mean? And turning a hobby into a tax write-off, I mean, what is better about entrepreneurship?
Why?
So, you guys are about a couple of years in business now, kind of 3 from the idea and the infancy to where you're at now. I know it's been a big uphill push. You're finally getting that momentum, at least from what I've gathered from our other conversations. So what are you guys doing, or what have you done to successfully set your brand apart from the other competition?
This is actually something really funny. Because our business creation was also accompanied by us moving, we did extensive market research on many counties throughout the Mountain West and the Pacific Northwest. We were looking for cities large enough that could support a practice that didn't have too many competing practices as well. We also wanted to move somewhere where there was this culture and this desire to be around horses, right? Because if you move somewhere, you say, hey, we're offering this cool new thing, mental health therapy with horses, and people go, well, we don't like horses or we're scared of them. It defeats the whole purpose. And so we did a lot of market research, and that's why we picked the county that we did. So we already knew that we were moving to a place that had very low competition. There are only a handful of mental health practices out here already. Nobody within an hour and a half of us offers mental health therapy with horses. The only closest competitor, and I say competitor not because they're not good at what they do, but they do behavioral health or occupational therapy with horses, which is riding the horse and using that to, but it's more like horseback riding lessons, less mental health therapy focused. And so there is no true competitor. And we've seen that there is no competitor that we really face end up in a good for us. But it is hard for us to set our brand apart from this one competitor anytime we're talking to someone. And actually our pipeline is full of these people where this competitor has, a long wait list, and they go, oh, great, let's go see if we can do the same thing over here with Ruby Ranch, which is the name of our business, Ruby Ranch. And we say, oh, actually, no, this is mental health. That's more like behavioral health, occupational therapy, that sort of thing. So that's the hardest thing. What we've really had to do is just on our website, very clearly define what we do. First things out the door, we don't ride. This is not horseback riding lessons. This is mental health therapy. It has been a little bit tricky to help people understand the difference. This is not horseback riding. This is therapy, or it's not, your kid comes and sits on the horse and helps them overcome their verbal issues and things like that.
Awesome. I think it's like almost a prerequisite for entrepreneurs to be dumb enough and brave enough to just try something without actually knowing what all the hurdles are, but then smart enough to actually tackle those hurdles and overcome them as you go along. I'm just curious, like, as far as the challenges of putting together like a therapy program, did you put the curriculum or the program together yourselves? Was that something that your wife spearheaded, or what was the process there?
Yeah, so that's the nice thing about having my wife, who is a therapist, is that she's had all this previous experience doing therapy. Kim decided that the framework she prefers was EAGALA. EAGALA is a well-known equine-assisted psychotherapy framework. She got trained in it, certified in it, and that helped bring some credibility to it. And that does bring some structure that we could adopt. And it doesn't necessarily mean that Kim hasn't had to innovate in her sessions and sort of try to marry the therapy principles she has in her past with what we're doing now. There's a lot of there's education that she's been doing a bunch of different modalities to try and help marry mental health therapy along with bringing these courses in to help facilitate therapy. So yeah, it's a little bit of both. We pull in a well known framework, and then innovation is needed.
Hmm.
Well, and I'm sure it's been nice, at least for me as an entrepreneur and a marketing minded person. I feel like I have a little bit of a leg up because so many businesses are like, how do I market stuff? And
Sure.
for me, it's like, I know how to market my marketing agency. I'm sure for Kim, it's nice because she doesn't have much of a business background. She worked for these other places and she gets to focus on the therapy part. And then you have your degree and all this business experience. And she says, here's a business problem, please solve it.
You would think that that's how it goes, and actually, that's not necessarily how it goes. So it is. It's funny because I completely slandered my full-time job. So actually, Kim in a lot of ways acts as a true business owner through hiring, managing, training. You know, she handles all the marketing on her stuff by herself. We do collaborate quite often on business problems, but really, other than the financial stuff, she runs the rest of it, and that's also because yeah, I'm completely full time on my own job.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
there does kind of come that moment, especially in early days of entrepreneurship, where like if you don't know marketing, you just have to do it anyways. You kind of learn as you go along. You mentioned before we started the recording that you're hoping to grow the business in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm curious what might be a current business problem that you're struggling with, and maybe we can brainstorm some strategies to take going forward.
Our current problem right now is we're in a growth phase. This is our third year in business. It's really about growth, and it's about scalability. Right now, you have my wife who is acting as an administrator and a therapist, so she's pretty tapped on time. I work my full-time job still and help her with the financial side. Mhm. And so how do we scale this? How do we get this to grow without without it completely overtaking our lives? And so we're in a hiring phase right now. Our current goal is to bring on another therapist. The business model is fantastic for bringing on another therapist based off of our projections that we've been able to do. We could be one of the top payers for therapists who wanted to come in and work for someone else's private practice. Obviously, they'll make more and have more headaches if they run their own practice. But if they're interested in being an employee, we could outpay most of the people here because of our current business model. And and so that's sort of case number one is how do you hire a good therapist who's interested in this, right? This is a very niche type of therapy. It's relatively new and there's not a lot of people who really do it. And so how do we pull in someone who has some interest there? And then the second thing is really our infrastructure. So we took out a pretty large loan to build an arena, and we just finished them. So Kim has now done about 15 sessions in our new arena, which is fantastic. And as we grow, we're looking at ancillary services, right? So there's this sort of main core service of offering mental health therapy. But in the horse world, there are people who want to have horses but don't have their own land and they want to keep them somewhere, of boarding. There's a lot of money to be made in boarding. There's money to be made in training, right? And only in 3 years, I've learned a ton about training horses. And all of our horses, I'm the primary trainer of. So we bought these horses and I've trained them to be therapy horses. And, you want to do the same thing, come bring your horse to my spot for 30 days, 60 days, and I'll train them. So we're looking at these ancillary services, but it costs money, right, to build this infrastructure. And so it's this balance of how much more debt do we go into to sort of foot the bill of generating revenue. And
Mhm.
that's, I think, kind of where we're at is we're in this hiring phase. We're in this looking for capital investment, whether that's through taking out loans or investors. How do we do that in a way that makes sense for us to build this architecture? Because we have the land, we just don't have the buildings.
The first problem, it sounds like, has been like scaling your hireability almost, right? Like finding the right employees and things like that. Have you guys built out like an ideal employee that you're looking to find?
Yeah, we definitely have a persona that we're looking for. We have had one employee who recently left. She's going to run her own business with her husband, which is fantastic for her. Through that experience, we learned like, okay, what kind of people we're looking for. One of the hardest things that I've found in hiring is that you're never going to find somebody who will do the job as well as you. There's not as much skin in the game, right? So you have to find these sort of like unicorn people who are sold on their vision. We always come with the vision first. One of the reasons we chose to move where we moved was we wanted to be in a spot where we could really maximize our serviceability and how much we could better the community. So we picked a community specific we thought we could do that in. Business is always about money. I'm not going to say that it isn't, but there's a lot more than that, right? We can make money and we can better people's lives. We always go with vision first. It's made it hard to hire. We've done probably 8 or 9 over the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue to do more interviews. And it's just hard to find that unicorn person that you feel like will do the job as well as you because they're sold on it.
I've heard a principle whenever you go to hire somebody, if they do it to 80% of your capacity of your ability to do it or better, like you need to hire and keep that person on forever because they're taking that off your plate. You can focus on other things. And for me, that helped so much because my expectation was, oh, they do it as good or better than me and they just know how to do it. And through that process of hiring people, realizing, okay, if they do it 80% as well as I do, that's the standard. They don't have to do it as well as I do. You can build on that skill set from there, but they have to have that vision first.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes 100% sense. Or makes 80% sense?
I communicated that 80% as well as it was communicated to me. And then the second issue you were bringing up was, I think just an ongoing question a lot of business owners have is like, how do I manage the debt of the business, right? Can you kind of restate sort of the problem that you're having there?
Oh, it's all about figuring out, can we build a business model that makes sense to where we feel comfortable going out and grabbing more investment, right? For example, and we're just so people can get an idea of the way I think about this. If we take the ancillary service of boarding a horse, you can board a horse, let's call it 600 at the top end. I'm not a top end facility. My arena is gorgeous, but it's not fully closed, right? It's only half enclosed. So you kind of take some knocks. Let's say I'm going to charge $450. So if I charge $450 a month, then I can essentially figure out how many months am I comfortable having that horse pay off an investment of, let's say, another 50 or 60 grand in building a nice stable, right? So if I wanted to build a nice stable, it's going to cost me, make math easy, 45,000, right? How many months is it going to take me? And am I okay with essentially those months that it would take me to pay it off? And so that's where we're at really is can we figure out a business model that makes sense to support a loan or a capital investment, right? That's the everything that we've been looking at. It's really go find investors that we can present this to and say, hey, look, we can get 10% return year over year. Are there capital investors that we can go after? Can we build a business model that makes sense? Or do we feel comfortable putting another loan with our collateral or whatever? So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Funding versus growth is a constant challenge for sure. It sounds like you have a solid strategy going forward, and it seems like you've got your priorities in the right spot in terms of solving one problem at a time. It sounds like the first thing is if you can get another therapist on, then that increases cash flow, makes everything easier, right? And if you're able to do that and still, make it an awesome place for that person to work, then you can move on to expanding your business into those ancillary services as, a potential new streams of revenue and just continuing to build all that out. But yeah, it sounds just like a really fun challenge, like an amazing place to be, especially since you work full time for a tech company. It's probably super nice to be able to get outdoors, spend time with horses and, do something that you love. in this business that you're building?
That's definitely the best part. I think the job is probably the thing that holds us back the most, to be totally honest with you. I work anywhere from 40 to 60 hours in a single week. And so on some of those weeks where it's 60 hours, you're like, oh man, I don't have time for anything else. And then the other thing is that we think about is, are we even in a spot right now where we could go into high rank mode? Or do we just let it sit, right? Do we let it sit and organically grow for a few years, see where we land, in 3 to 4 years, and at that point make another decision? And maybe that's where we take out a large loan or whatever to build a stable or whatever. So those are always the things that we're always thinking is, do we just let it coast for a little bit until I'm more freed up, or do we go hard at it and then build it to a spot where I can just quit next year or the year after? I have no idea.
Something I heard recently in another business networking group, somebody was facing a similar question. She was saying, hey, I can either, she's a realtor. She was like, I just got approached by somebody to start a brokerage, but I also have been approached by people that want me to do property management. She said, I can't do both. I just don't have the bandwidth, and both are great opportunities. And somebody asked like, well, what is your 5-year goal? And how do each play into your 5-year goal? So I'm sure that that's something you've thought about, but I think that that's a really good way for people that may be watching and have some of these business conundrums. What do you want your life to look like in 5 years? And how do you want, like, how does each decision play into your ability? Because I think as entrepreneurs, it's easy to get shiny object syndrome. And we say, oh, this is a cool thing. This, like, we all kind of have our ADD brains a little bit. And so to have something that we're focused on, to say, is this just a shiny object that's pulling us away from that? Or is this a shiny object that pushes us towards that? I think that having that and metering that against our futures, at least for me, that framework helped a lot.
I love it.
Thanks for joining us, Diego. This has been a great chat, and we really appreciate your time. We wish you nothing but the best for your business. It seems like you've really laid a solid foundation for this thing to continue to grow. Whether you go for that hyper growth strategy or kind of let it grow organically, there's a bright future ahead.
Yeah. And just as a wrap up here, if people wanted to learn more about your business and what you guys do at Ruby Ridge, what are some ways that they can find you guys?
Yeah, just go look us up, rubyranch.net. We're located in Southern Oregon, rubyranch.net. Best place to start.
Awesome. So check them out online, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys got some value from it, and we'll see you on the next one.